Greetings. Welcome, Elizabeth Wise. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Richmond Sessions 2223. This Richmond Sessions project is a recording space within the exhibition Storied Strings, a Guitar in American Art, organized by the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. The exhibition includes about 125 works of art and 35 guitars, divided into 17 themes ranging from politics, gender, and blindness to race and ethnicity. Linking these themes is the premise that the guitar, as a visual motif, has long enabled artists and their human subjects to tell stories that might otherwise go untold or undertold. Richmond Sessions 2223, in turn, is a showcase for contemporary musicians like yourself to record songs that demonstrate the power of the guitar as a means for telling stories, invoking universal themes, and weighing in on myriad events. So, Elizabeth, I guess the question to start us off with is the guitar a communicating and storytelling tool?
To me, it's obvious that it is. It's got such a long history, and I was thinking about it just on the way down here. Every instrument that's been created, there's a reason why it's been created. You know, there's so many instruments out there, and guitar is so prominent and universal that I think that begs the questions that you're asking in this exhibit and searching that you're doing, and why is that, and how much has it actually allowed us to communicate universally and across subject.
In your recent album, Reckless Sophistication, you offer ample evidence that the guitar is as we've been saying here at VMFA, a storyteller's companion. But for you, the guitar seems like a companion, but it's also the conversational or discursive tool of choice. In a song like Voodoo Woman Working All Night Long, you almost team up with the instrument to wage a critique, to articulate points. Is that a fair assessment, or?
Yeah, I do. I think that that's fair, and I can see why you'd say that about that one. But to me, it feels like it goes with all of them. And I've written a lot of instrumentals as well, and they're some of my favorite to work on. That's because words just mess things up sometimes and don't say it all that needs to be said. But I think that the guitar is the more powerful between the guitar and lyrics. I think the guitar says more.
Georgia O'Keeffe has some quote about, I try to say things with color that words can't get at. Would you like to play us parts of maybe a few flourishes from Voodoo Woman?
Sure, yeah. What did you think I could say when you walked back in that day? What did you think I would do after falling in love with you? What did you think I would feel with that heartbreak at my heels? Nipping a kill, all for a thrill. Gonna be a voodoo woman working all night long. They're gonna be a voodoo woman working all night long. That's the first verse.
Cool. You know, it occurs to me that percussion and the thumping of the strings and the clicking of your fingernails against the strings play a more than ordinary role in this song. How much do you think about percussion and the percussiveness of your right hand upon the string when you're writing and when you're playing?
A lot. That's been a constant since I started getting to know the instrument. Mm-hmm. And I'm self-taught. I mean, I had other music lessons before, classical piano and jazz piano. I loved piano, but guitar was more expressive for me. And I think that's because of all those opportunities that there are. I started purely on acoustic for years. It was, I don't know, maybe 10 years until I got my first electric. And I really spent just a lot of time exploring the guitar and what I could do. And I had seen some pretty amazing shows by the early times of my playing, 14, 15.
Who were some of them?
One of them was Leo Kottke, one was Tommy Emmanuel, and one was, who was here recently, I know. When I was 15, I lived in Germany for a bit on my own, and there was this couple that was really great to me. They took me to my first opera. I was living outside of Frankfurt. But they also took me, because I was starting guitar, and I was a painfully shy kid, and it's just hard to make friends. So I spent a lot of time just writing music and playing and listening to music and guitar players. And they nurtured that need for me. And there was this show, it was called the World Guitar Ensemble. I've never been able to find any recordings by them. I've never heard of them doing it again. So I think it was a one-off tour where there were 8 guitarists from 7 different countries, I think, and all the guitars were different types of guitars from different periods of guitar. That was amazing for me. And that was a pretty big concert hall in Frankfurt. So just seeing how each person was using the guitar and percussion was big. And then a friend of mine in Memphis, when I lived there, he went to a show on an off night on a tour. It was a jazz trio, and each person took turns kind of filling in the role when one would take a solo. So when the drummer would take a solo, the vocalist and the guitar player would pick up the percussion, pick up the rhythm to set so the drummer could play more melodically with his instrument. And so each one kind of figured out how to be each instrument and fill in for the other and swap roles. And he said, we need to be thinking about that as musicians. We're not just guitar players. We're whatever role we need to be, and we can with our instrument, and vocalists can do that. And I chew on that all the time.
In some of your songs, there's a sort of self-reflexive kind of meta element where you're talking, but, in Good Ain't Good Enough, you say the good guy is one who listens to what I say. And in Tulsa, I can keep trying to speak. I can't keep trying to speak when you don't hear a thing. It seems that words, logos, words having a say in who gets to speak and the importance of being heard, is that a recurring theme for you?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that at all. It just hadn't occurred to me. And I think that the answer is absolutely. I mean, being heard, you can feel when you're being heard. You can viscerally feel that. Even if somebody's looking at you and nodding, and you can pick up on if they're not, and you just know it. And a lot of songwriting that I've done has been, and instrumentals and with lyric, have been about saying what I need to say. There's a power in just saying something out loud, even if nobody's hearing it. But there's a power in saying your truth out loud, I think, and that makes it real in a way.
Sure. So
we repress things all the time. I know that I definitely have, and I've repressed things that I shouldn't have for years, and so it kind of becomes a form of therapy, I think. Getting this stuff out there, and that way you're kind of you're pronouncing part of your reality, which means that you can then start facing it and figuring out how to. In my situation, I think sometimes it's been, how do I stand up for myself better next time?
Yeah, there's a sense of almost. I think some of the best music has a sense of sonic release, like those things that you have been keeping down, allowing them to have their say. Can you play a song that maybe gets at that theme?
my back, you got me turning right around. Every time a black truck in town, that's a shame. Baby, that's a damn shame. Yeah, this hold you got on me, oh, driving me insane. And good ain't good enough. I found me a good man. Y'all know it's about time. I found me a good man. Baby, don't you know it's about time? Baby, don't you know good ain't good enough though? Oh, I said, hold on, and he take me out. He ain't trying to hide me or nothing. Take me out. He ain't trying to hide me on nothing. Baby, he ain't watching as a bag. Oh, I said for another woman to come up and shoot him down. And yeah, I do have a hand injury, so I'm doing the best I can here, but. And good and good enough, I'll say, to add on to what you said, is about the man who will hear me. But it was a revelation when I seriously was dating the first nice guy I'd ever dated, which took way too long to get there, and I realized that he was great. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but it still wasn't quite right. And I had fallen into this danger zone of I just want a nice guy. And then I realized that we were better off as friends. And that was huge for me. I know it's so simple, and I'm sure everybody else knows it, but I think that I knew it theoretically, but I didn't understand what that experience was like. To like somebody perfectly well, but you still need to stand up for yourself and say, you know, I don't have to stay in this just because you're good to me.
Right.
There's so much more that has to go into it, and you can't settle. Yeah, that was new to me.
As timeless as that theme is in our everyday lives and in music, it's asking a lot of a song to register that. Mm. You know, it's a very clever song, too. You obviously have some fun. There are musical hooks, but there are lyrical hooks, too. But I'd like to shift gears and ask you, do you play with a pick much?
No.
Do you ever play with a pick?
I can. I rarely even think to do it, but there have been a couple times I've brought a pick to gigs, and I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to play with a pick on a gig. And each time, maybe I start with one, which is amazing if I even get to start with one. But before long, I just chuck it on the ground. I'm a very tactile person. You know, I've worked hard with my hands. I've worked in farming, and my fine art form is ceramics. And nothing better than the feeling of being elbow deep in mud and actually making something with it. So I've noticed this theme. It's just everything's attached to my hands and the need to make things and feel things with my hands. So with guitar from the beginning, and my first guitar was a classical. So I knew that you weren't really, like most people don't play a pick with a classical guitar. And I just never got confident with one because I can't feel the strings. I'm not bad with a pick, but if I can't feel the strings and know that I have 5 fingers to use if I need to, I feel like something's in the way.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's such an interesting and illuminating take on guitar as feeling, and not having any barriers between you and this device that can articulate sentiments in its own right. And a song like Beginning of the End, also on Reckless Sophistication, there's almost, and I may be wrong in saying this, almost a New Orleans-esque sense of parade and pageant in that. It has parts of the arrangement anyway are kind of cabaret-esque or theatrical. Do you view your guitar as that, or does your guitar facilitate in that song?
I think the guitar is a facilitator in that. I listen to lots of different styles, lots of different genres continue to influence me. I realized that I hadn't ever written a song in that New Orleans style, and I love that style, and I listen to it a lot, and kind of news to me that I hadn't written a song with that particular influence showing through. So when sometimes I'll realize these little things, and I'll go, well, I need to challenge myself and what that allows me to say that I haven't said before. Because the guitar and pushing styles of that pushes how I sing. It doesn't happen the other way around, I don't think. I think it happens from the guitar, and what comes out there stylistically dictates how I'm going to try different ways of singing, and I therefore, I think, become a better vocalist because of it. And my goal is always to write a song that I've never written before. I think it would be terrible to get to sound monotonous. So I wrote a whole different style of lyric and sang a whole different style for me than I'd ever done before.
One of the things I like about another song on the album called Like a Frame in a Hitchcock Film, and this is very meta also, you talk about that song, you're writing about writing in that song. Writing a composition in bold. I'm caught up in your plot, and I almost got the sense, and in Mama's Blues you say, I cannot get you out of my head. Some of your songs you talk about being figuratively or literally trapped. And it's almost like the guitar is a way to breathe freely. Can you play Like a Frame in a Hitchcock Film for us?
Mm-hmm.
Retreat. It would have helped me out a hell of a lot, baby, if I thought you would treat me cheap. The whole world runs in a circle like your pet hamster beat. And with you, I'm no exception. To get home, you're my only street. I swore it off for good. You make me want to search again. The chaos of the soul. When you disclose the blemishes subsumed by your baggy eyelid folds. You say it's the devil that you come to love, but I see an angel of truth written in bold. To turn my heart off when you projected your mystery. Now I'm caught up in your plot. Yes, your winding trajectory. And I found you thrilling composition. I said a compositional thrill. And now I'm tied up in your story.
That's great. That's one of my favorite songs.
Thank you.
On the album.
I actually wrote that second verse about my best friend, Kenny White, who's huge influence on me as a songwriter. He started out as my music mentor. Met him when I was 16 at a songwriting festival. And he's just one of the most honest people, but he's so honest about his self-awareness and his flaws, not in a woe is me kind of way, but just, this is what I do, and I need to, and always thinking about that, and what do I do with that? And then he told me one time, I came to him and I brought one of my folk tunes to him, and he said, I think that's one of the strongest songs you've ever written. And I said, I cried when I wrote it, and I felt like an idiot. And it's such a wuss. I hate crying. And he said, I cry all the time when I write. That's what happens when you write truthfully. He said, that's a good song if it makes you cry because you're being so vulnerable.
Does he play on the CD?
Yeah, he does.
I thought I recognized that name. So some people watching this may not know that among your many, I mean, you truly are a Renaissance woman. You bring a lot to your songwriting and playing, but art history plays a very large role in your life.
And in my music.
Yeah, and so could you say a little bit about how a certain art historical consciousness plays out in your music and your guitar playing in particular?
The research side and it's more the investigative side, I think.
Sure.
More appropriate than the research side. The questions, the why questions all the time, and looking into certain instances and continuously realizing that underneath whatever the answers are, underneath, art history gives us a way of looking into that and this profound part of cultures globally throughout history, that art and including music as an art form have had key roles in cultures. And I've always struggled, I never thought that I was a very good singer or a very good guitar player or that I write the best songs. But ever since I started playing guitar, I taught myself through writing songs, and then I felt the need to share them. And in my family, it's just what you did. We all always played and sang music together at family gatherings. It just happened organically. It was part of our fun, and a lot of musicians on my mom's side of the family. And it was just a way to celebrate being together and sharing time together. And so I guess that's why I felt the need to share what I was writing, what I was doing. But I constantly, and still am at times, conflicted with, why am I putting people through this? I must be a really nasty person deep down, making people have to listen to me on a microphone when I don't even think I'm that good. And yet I feel the need to put people through this. I feel like that's pretty mean of me. Why do I do this? And then I'm just singing songs. Why am I singing songs and not sure I can pay my bills this month? And then art history has helped me so much with understanding that being a musician, being an artist, it is important. And grown men have come up and they've had tears in their eyes, and they said, I really needed to hear that. I'm going through a really rough time. Sure. And I don't know what song it was. I don't know what they were going through. But that's happened many times when people have said, I didn't know what I needed, but that was really comforting for me right now. So just realizing that music as an art form, it really does matter. And here I am in art history arguing that art matters and conversing with artists all the time and them saying, well, you're an artist, you get it. I go, oh, I'm not a real artist. And they're saying, yes, you are. So it's just all of it works together. And from that fundamental coming to terms with the fact of being an artist is then, well, how do you push yourself when you feel like you're getting stale with yourself? What do you do next? And it's by investigating what other artists have done in their art forms, that's really helped me figure out how I push myself and explore things.
Except you, of course, are an artist.
Right, but that has been really hard for me to accept.
Sure.
So, but art history and being around artists of different mediums, all of it together is what I think makes me a whole person and accept myself. So.
Sure. That makes sense. That's very well said. So, in listening to Reckless Sophistication, I was a little surprised after 8 or 9 songs of some pretty badass slide playing to hear you suddenly switch to acoustic. More than it sounds. I think rock bridge. Can you talk a little bit about what you get, or can you summarize a little bit for you what you get from acoustic versus your electric tele playing?
They're whole different worlds.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I've taken an acoustic and an electric to a gig. Most of the time I do, because especially if I'm not really sure what the room is like. I've never played in that room before. And oftentimes, one sounds much better than the other. Also, sometimes I need the rawness of the acoustic and the more percussive side of the acoustic. I feel the need to, where I am at that point, and I go back and forth about leaning towards the acoustic, leaning towards the electric. All the time, it's always ebbing and flowing. And but sometimes I need it's a whole different rawness that the electric brings. And I'm a raw player, I'm not a clean player at all. I'm very sloppy, and I, most of the time, don't know what I'm doing. And so I really dig into the rawness that I can get from the two. And with electric, you have those longer sustained notes, and you have you can play with feedback if you want to. You can play with just a little bit more tenderness in the strings in a whole different way that the acoustic has tenderness. So you can do little things on the electric strings. Like I always get wound strings, and sometimes I'll scrape my thumbnail and stuff around. It's just percussive, different kinds of approaches. And if you're in a venue, that picks up better on the electric, I think. So sometimes it's just my mood. Oftentimes it's the room, what's just fitting the room better. I like exploring all the different ways that I can play a single song. Just messing with a little bit of stylistic stuff on each guitar, but then between the two guitars, there's so many options of how to never fall into playing a song the same way twice. So similar to what I said earlier about never wanting to write the same song twice, I also never want to play a song exactly the same way twice, because that's boring. And what am I learning in that?
And yet, if your if your music finds the desired audiences, people might be expecting to hear what they know.
Yeah, and they might be, and make it somewhat familiar, but I don't want to make it exactly the same.
Yeah, because you would get very bored.
Yeah.
I could
give a little example between the two.
Yeah, sure.
So, in the Hitchcock song, I can... So that's running it down on acoustic. Even if I play it similarly, it changes when I throw it down on electric. just has a whole different feeling, and one's not better than the other in my mind. I know everybody has their preference. To me, they're equal, but there are different things that I can access.
Do you use effects pedals much?
No.
Thanks. I mean, the only thing you got here is a tuner there, so.
Yeah. I have nothing against them, and there are lots of times I go, oh, I want to explore them, but then I kind of forget to. I feel like I have so much already to explore.
A lot of slide players choose a Strat or a Les Paul. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about your penchant for Telecasters?
I don't know that I can really explain it other than the way it feels viscerally. It feels good, feels right. It's like when you pick up an acoustic that fits you,
Sure.
fits, and it is. This is kind of a Frankenstein telly, but maybe that's one reason I like it so much.
Have you experimented much with other electric models?
I have. One of the few that I've really, strongly gravitated to is a Gibson 335. I want one of those.
They're so expensive.
I mean, salivate is, I think, the word I'm looking for. Yeah, that's a lust for sure.
I think that lust costs $3,500 now.
It does. Yeah. I try to not think about that.
Yeah, I do too. Can we go back to some earlier music of yours?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what New Zealand means to you, and maybe give us a taste, play New Zealand tune?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I lived in New Zealand for a year. I would have never come back if I could have afforded to renew my visa, and it's not like everything was heaven and easy and perfect, but it was heaven. I still have really good friends there. I'm homesick for it all the time. There are only two places I'm homesick for. One is where I'm from, which is Rockbridge County in Virginia, Lexington. It's where I was born. That's always been home to me. And then I got to New Zealand, and that's the only other place that ever felt like home. So this song is, I wrote a few instrumentals there. This one, I think I've settled on a name finally, and it's Port Charles Porch. So I was in Port Charles on the Coromandel Peninsula for a friend's birthday celebration, just at their little batch house, and we were all sitting out on the porch, and a couple of us had some instruments out, and we were just playing, and this started to come together then, and I can remember that scene, that beautiful day very well, looking over the water, and just wonderful people, very dear to me still. So.
That's great. Thanks so very much for playing that. Did I hear a bending harmonic in that?
Maybe.
That's very bold. That's great. I think that there's something about the descending chords, almost like cascading down from the upper registers on the neck, that certainly evokes the ease and sense of, I don't know, liberation that you were talking about, that you felt there.
That's an interesting tip.
I mean, well, let me ask you this: how do you feel the song really, the playing of it gets at the New Zealand experience for you?
A lot of my songs, when I think about them that I've written, and especially the ones that I play out more, a lot of them are very heavy on the blues influence. A lot of pentatonic, a lot of minor, at least minor edged. And while the blues has just in many ways been a big influence on me and important part of the that kind of therapeutic side, like I was talking about before, that I get from music and the guitar. Sometimes I have to make it, and I kind of naturally, out of habit, go to those sounds, and I'll start playing, and that's when I start playing. That's not how I feel right now. It's really not how I feel. And I think New Zealand was where I consciously made the effort, and it comes out in the instrumentals that I wrote. They're much more of my bluegrass influence, I think, and that comes from my uncle and my cousin. Thinking about which notes I play. I'm not going to play that flat third. I'm going to play the notes that reflect this incredible experience I've got right now with these beautiful people right here. And what I feel is more of pure is not the right word. In no way do I think that I am pure. But that day, that experience, it was so clean feeling, and kind of a pure feeling of just the beauty around and the beauty of the people. And I wanted to write something sonically pretty, but not in a Hallmark kind of way. Still meaningful, still got a real story behind it. But yeah, it's like, I'm not going to play that flat third. I'm not going to. It was hard.
Well, would you be willing to play a bit of Paying All the Rest of Your Life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Switch tune-ins real quick.
So you think I might take it back? Honey, make me laugh. Well, you think I might take it back? Well, honey, you're making me laugh. Those buckets of tears that you brought here, I watched you fill them at the well last night. You say you miss me now. I bet that's the truth now. You say you miss me now. Baby, I bet that's the truth. She's a special kind of devil that you let into your house.
That's outstanding. Thank you so much. This is a very facile and perhaps a misguided question. Right now and in general, is it easier to play electric than acoustic?
You mean with the injury?
Yeah, but not just with that. I'm just curious, I know each has its own place, but is there an ease you have with one over the other?
It changes. That's one of the things that changes. And lately I've been playing the electric because my acoustic has a bit of a higher action for slide. So that one's been harder for me to play with my hand injury. But this is, it's a Wayne Henderson. It's a perfect guitar.
We should probably talk about what you're playing, of course, is a guitar, the genesis of which goes back to In Your Ear Zone, the late Robin Thompson, of course, who collected much of the woods, and they're all Virginia woods. The nut and the saddle are, in fact, from a Virginia bear. Mm-hmm. And if anyone watching this doesn't know who Wayne Henderson is, well, first off, I'd be surprised, but just Google him. How would you characterize the sound and the playing of this Henderson?
Perfect. Does that work? It's the tone of an acoustic that I always gravitate towards, for one thing. So those warmer tones, meatier tones. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. In all of my guitars, I like to have that. Make sure I got enough of the low end in the balance, and this certainly does. While the high end still gets that punch, and then it is so easy to play. I was a little worried with my hand injury coming in, thinking, I'm going to get the chance to play a Wayne Henderson for the first time in my life. It's a childhood dream, and am I going to be able to? Because it's acoustic, and I can. It's no harder than the action on my electric, which really says something. It is just an incredibly built guitar, set up it beautifully, and the neck it's just, everything is right.
And these are not things one might say about other acoustics.
I've played plenty that I know that I can't play right now without wearing out the injury and overdoing it.
Would you feel comfortable playing a few more tunes, though?
Mm-hmm.
How about Mama's Blues?
Sure. This song came out of a pretty important set of conversations I had with my two uncles, my mom's two brothers. I'm really close with one of them, and I'm very close with the other. And actually did my important growing up in one of their households. And questions I had in a very painful time of my life, and talking to them, have you ever experienced anything, what'd you do? I know that you've had hard times too. And both of them brought up their mom, my grandmother, who was one of my few the only grandparent I really got to know or even knew at all. And she was awesome. She was a very strong woman. But she had definitely had challenges in her life, pretty tough ones, and she never talked about them. And both of these uncles gave me some insight into things that they learned from her wisdom, from going through what she had gone through. And they were it was kind of like passing it along to me. And the two statements, neither of them knew that the other had said what they said to me, and they weren't the same thing, but to me, it was like fitting in these parts of the puzzle of what exactly she might have gone through, and just what kind of traumas maybe they were similar to mine. So it was anyway. That's the middle verse in it is about those conversations and that coming out of it. One of the things that one of them told me she said to them, and then maybe it's a cheesy title, call it Mama's Blues, but I called her Mama, and so wouldn't have written the song without learning that and stuff that she passed along, so.
my head. I tried all night long, but 4 o'clock, he coming on mighty strong. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I told myself, baby, all the wrong that you done to me. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Baby, I told myself now all the wrong that you done to me. I tried every trick in the book, but 5 o'clock ain't gonna let me off the hook. Told me, baby, there's worse things than dying. My grandma, she told me, yeah, now there's worse things than dying. How I wish she were here, maybe she could help wash away the tears.
Great, thank you so very much. Yeah, I like how you take us through the times of the day. And that's a really interesting way to set up a song structure. Certainly. Can you talk a little bit about what Tulsa's about?
Tulsa was a good exercise for me.
And Tulsa, just so everyone knows, is another song, one of my favorites actually, personally, from the latest album.
Yeah, Tulsa is, like I said, I taught myself how to play by writing songs. I think it's always been the case that every time I write a song, it's a challenge to me to further my development as a musician. So, and sometimes it's very specific little challenges that I set for myself. Yeah, I get tired about writing about my experiences, and there's no reason to keep doing that. And sometimes it's, I think, important to know how to remove yourself from yourself and investigate the real feelings of somebody else's situation. So they say that you always should write things that you know about. So I had a friend going through a rough time, and so we were having a lot of conversations about what she was dealing with, and it was writing a song from her perspective, and just trying to imagine what I would say if I was in her shoes, how I would feel.
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes is, some of the best songwriters do that. John Prine, as a 20-something, taking on the persona of a 70 or 80-year-old, or vice versa. Yeah. So, but anyway, I look forward to hearing Tulsa.
And John Prine has always been a huge influence on me, and that's one of the reasons why. And when I wrote this song, I was having a reflective moment like that. I was probably listening to John Prine, actually, and going, I don't push myself in that direction enough. I want to do it more and further. It's hard. It's really hard to do. well, I think.
I'm going home, Tulsa, 'cause I can't stay here with you. Just 'cause I love you so, don't mean it's a good thing to do. And I can't keep trying to speak when you never hear a thing. I got them going home, going on a Tulsa Day blues. Yeah, got them going home, Tulsa Day blues. I ain't gonna keep a wasting all my good love that I gave to you. Find someone else to talk down to, 'cause I'm a one-way leaving for good. I can't keep trying to speak when you never hear a thing. I got them going home, going on a Tulsa Day blues. Yeah, I got them going home, Tulsa Day blues. You're gonna miss me, baby, yeah, and you're gonna damn me round town. But I don't care what you do, 'cause I ain't gonna be around. And I can't keep trying to speak when you never hear a thing. I got them going home, going on a Tulsa Day blues. Yeah, I got them going home to Tulsa Day blues.
Wow, that's great. So let me ask you this: if John Prine, as a singer-songwriter, is one of your inspirations, could you say a little bit about who some of your, from a strictly guitar playing point of view, and individuals who maybe play a large role in your practice as a guitarist?
Yeah. Early on, some of the earliest guitar players that were big influences on me were John Lee Hooker, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Muddy Waters, Elmore James, Blind Willie Johnson, and Rory Block. And then, like I said earlier, very early on as well, Tommy Emmanuel and Leo Kottke. And then Chris Smithers was huge on me as well. Later on, I discovered Bonnie Raitt. Everybody thinks that she was the first, and she was, huge on me when I got to her. But I got to Rory Block first, and Chris Smithers, Tommy Emmanuel, and, well, all those others that I mentioned. And also classical guitar. Leo Brouwer, one of my favorite guitar composers.
Gotcha. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and learning more about your musicianship. Is there one song perhaps you'd like to play to take us out?
So, yep. This song, More Than It Sounds, I actually wrote out of this little experience that I had. Chris Smithers was one of the early ones, like I said, that I was introduced to. And somebody gave me a mix of his stuff burned on a CD. And, I mean, I just ate it all up and always did. And then I moved to Memphis eventually. I was 19 when I moved to Memphis. And you'd be talking with people, making friends in the music industry there and gigging. And I asked people, about Chris Smithers. And a lot of I was hanging out with the blues crowd. And a lot of them weren't focusing on Chris Smithers. Shame on them. And so as a young musician, I actually took that as, well, I need to be listening to all these other musicians that they're telling me I need to listen to, which I did. I did need to really educate myself more as I was there and, cutting my teeth in the blues in Memphis. And I kind of put all the other stuff that had been a big influence on me to the side and went, well, maybe I just don't know. I'm not listening to the right people. My taste isn't as good as it should be, and in what's really good. And moving cross country, and I can listen to the same CD over and over again, just study different parts of every song, and it's my favorite listening time. And I went, well, one day I'm only going to go through the old CDs, really old CDs that still work and I haven't listened to in a long time, and see what I think now. And I put his in, and I listened to it for the 22-hour drive, and just one of his. And why haven't I been listening to this for the past 10 years? Why would I put this down? And I was really kind of ashamed of myself and realizing that that was reflective of a lot for me at that point in my life. I had put a lot of myself down and not appreciated a lot about me, tried to fit in, tried to make other people proud of me, do what they thought I should do, play the way they thought I should play, sing and write the way they thought I should, and got away from my folkier side and my singer-songwriter side more. And I got to where I was going, and I moved in, and I listened to him really hard for like that next year. And eventually the song came out, and it's called More Than It Sounds, and the hook is, you were more to me than it sounds. And it's very much written to Chris Smithers' songs, songwriting and guitar playing, and how much of an influence he was on me, and just re-embracing that and writing a song that is not what people thought that I should be writing, and getting back to my roots. I used to write more stuff like this, so.
I was drawn every night like the setting sun draws artists to the west to lay its glory down. Yeah, your music filled my cup, but I drank it all up. And then the years came on like rapid fire. Life comes on so strong, and I didn't mean to forget or put you down. You were more to me than it sounds. You were more to me than it sounds. 20 years have passed like a raging fire, burning out the overgrowth faster than a bad desire. And all the while you were playing on, but I was burning too strong. there's fertile ground, and I hear it again, your sweet stomping, picking blues sound. And I didn't mean to forget or put you down. You are more to me than it sounds. Yeah, you are more to me than it sounds.
Elizabeth, that was just fantastic. Thanks so much for playing that. And thanks so much for being our participant, our guest on this episode of Richmond Sessions 22-23. It's really been a pleasure and so fascinating tracing your musical career here. And thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.